Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Amritpal Singh. Coming up in the next 1 hour, the global tariff war escalates with China announcing 84% tariffs on US goods. European Union retaliates too, imposes 25% additional tariffs on US goods. Global markets tank. India terminates the trans-shipment facility for Bangladesh to export goods. '2611 plotter Tahawwur Rana extradited from the United States will land shortly in India. President Murmu holds talks with our Slovak counterpart in Bratislava. Leaders review various facets of bilateral ties. 2 MOUs exchanged. And India's central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, cuts repo rate by 25 basis points to 6% for the second time. Well, our top story, Tahawwur Rana, accused of masterminding the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks, has been extradited from the United States and is expected to arrive in India on Thursday morning. He's accompanied by a special team of intelligence and NIA or the National Investigation Authorities officials. The extradition comes after the US Supreme Court recently rejected Rana's last appeal, essentially clearing the way for his handover to Indian authorities. Rana is a Pakistani origin Canadian businessman. He is known to have been active operative of the terror outfit Lashkar-e-Taiba and played a pivotal role in facilitating travel documents for David Coleman Headley. Tahawwur Rana and David Headley were detained by the FBI at the Chicago airport in October 2009. So who is Tahawwur Rana? What is the case against him? Rana was found guilty in the United States District Court on 1 count of conspiracy to provide material support to terrorist plot in Denmark and on another count of providing material support to Pakistan-based terrorist organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, which was responsible for the attacks in Mumbai. 2008 Mumbai blasts were a series of coordinated terrorist attacks in which 166 people died and over 200 were injured.
Tahawwur Rana holds Canadian citizenship and has Pakistani origins. He faces charges in India for his involvement in the 2008 Mumbai attacks and was found guilty in the US for aiding Lashkar-e-Taiba. India is seeking his extradition for his role in the 2611 attacks. Rana assisted David Headley, a co-conspirator in the attack, who held US citizenship and Pakistani heritage. Rana provided Headley with false credentials to help him scout targets for the attack. In January this year, the US Supreme Court rejected Tahawwur Rana's petition, and that was quickly followed up by Senator Rubio authorizing Rana's extradition in February. Later on, US President Donald Trump announced the extradition of Tahawwur Rana to India, adding that he would face justice. He made the announcement during a joint press conference with Prime Minister Narendra Modi following their bilateral meeting. Rana's defense filed for more documents on February 13. On February 19, the court denied his request to delay the extradition. Again, the Ninth Circuit rejected his appeal on February 21. Rana filed an emergency request with the US Supreme Court within a week, which was also rejected on March 5, 2025. And on April 7, the US Supreme Court again rejected his plea for a stay on his extradition to India.
And to talk more about that, we are joined. I'm joined on the show by Pinky Anand. She's a senior advocate practicing at the Supreme Court. She's also a former Additional Solicitor General of India, and also by Captain Alok Bansal. He's director of the India Foundation. Thank you both for joining. First, to you, Captain. Could this be seen as a big diplomatic victory for India?
See, there is no doubt that it's a big achievement for India to have succeeded in getting him extradited, because this shows that US has understood the gravity of the situation and has collaborated, because Tahawwur Rana tried his level best to prevent this extradition. He even went and to the extent of telling that he will not be given a free trial. He felt that the Indian prisons were quite bad and he'll be tortured. So what is important is that India has succeeded in convincing the American authorities that the situation in India and Indian jails is okay. So once he comes here, there'll be greater revelations which will be of immense use to us and which can be used in the international community to highlight his involvement and Pakistan's involvement in the case.
All right. Pinky Anand, if one were to understand the legal process, now that he's being brought back to India, what happens next in terms of the legal process?
See, ultimately, the purpose of bringing back any criminal or accused of an offence is that they will face proceedings within the criminal courts in India. And that is why an offence that has occurred in India, obviously, in this case, it's the 2008 Mumbai attacks, but the extradition process itself is over, and he is being brought here, so he will be tried in accordance with law for the various offences that have been held against him. He's been held to be a fairly major conspirator and co-conspirator along with Headley. I think that is a matter of ultimately facts and merits, but ultimately he's going to be tried for criminal cases in India in accordance with the Indian law, and I think justice would be served in due course.
Okay. And Captain Bansal, given the fact that Tahawwur Rana was not found guilty on one count of providing material evidence, support for the 26/11 attacks in a US district court, how would that benefit him, or would that affect the case? And also, if Pinky Anand could come in after the Captain Bansal.
See, I don't know what is the legal position, but I don't think so any decision of the US court is binding on Indian courts.
Okay.
And Indian interrogators would interrogate him and get inputs. What is important is that his interrogation will reveal facts, some missing links as far as 26/11 conspiracy is concerned. More significantly, his extradition, his conviction will prove Pakistan's involvement. Very often we forget that Tahawwur Rana was actually an officer of the Pakistan Army. He served in the Pakistan Army as a medical officer in the rank of captain before emigrating to Canada. This whole process could be a conspiracy of the ISI to send him to Canada and from there to US, and what all he has done. So, to my mind, his coming back to India would provide investigators with vital information and fill in the gaps that have been existing as far as India's charge sheet or case is concerned. This will strengthen India's case in front of the international community, who can be given a foolproof case as far as 26/11 and Pakistan's involvement is concerned.
Okay. Pinky Anand, I would want you to come in on this, that given that the jury acquitted him there or exonerated him on this charge, on two counts they held him guilty. One, providing material support to the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which he was funding, which is clearly a terrorist organization, and the other on that Danish newspaper attack. But on this particular, he was let off, saying there is not enough evidence to prove his involvement in that. Would that affect his case here in the Indian courts?
Two things, not really.
Okay.
Ultimately, he'll be tried in accordance with Indian law and what is required of Indian law and what would prove his involvement in the whole situation. And two, I think my friend is absolutely right in saying there will be an interrogation which will happen here, and that interrogation could ultimately reveal the missing links, because what is held is not enough evidence in that court. A US court's finding, depending on what he's been charged with, for whatever offence he's been charged with, would not be binding on an Indian court under the Indian criminal law.
Okay. You say, Captain Bansal, that it could unravel the bigger conspiracy, because till now only one person has been tried. and that was Ajmal Amir Kasab, because he was caught alive, and he was also a very low-level executioner. He wouldn't be aware of the bigger conspiracy, how, at what level was it hatched. The Indian investigators do have some leads. They've shared it with Pakistan, but Pakistan hasn't cooperated on that. But now with Tahawwur Rana's interrogation here and what he reveals to the Indian investigators, could that establish direct links with, say, Hafid Saeed or other people within the ISI? Because at that time when the attacks happened, we heard names like Major Sameer, etc., of the ISI, who was sitting in the control room and coordinating the operations.
See, there is no doubt that Tahawwur Rana is a much higher level of operative than Ajmal Kasab, who was actually an illiterate poor man who was used by ISI to execute the attack. With Tahawwur Rana, you would get better links. Who sent him to do the recce? What were his links with David Headley? And who in ISI met them? Who was guiding them? What are their linkages with Hafiz Saeed? So there are a lot of facts which are likely to come out once Tahawwur Rana is investigated and interrogated, and that would make a foolproof case as far as Pakistan and ISI's involvement in this 26/11 is concerned. And I think that can be presented to the international community to persuade them to impose sanctions or pressurize Pakistan to take action, and to probably provide the perpetrators or those who were involved for investigation or interrogation. Because Pakistan till now has tried to say that the evidence given to them has been half-baked and doesn't really merit any action. But with this sort of a development, with Tahawwur Rana's inputs coming in, I think India's case will be far more strengthened. It will put Pakistan under tremendous pressure, both from India as well as from the international community, because that would be a clear evidence that Pakistan has been sponsoring terror, and this is, I think, the clearest manifestation of that.
Okay. Pinky Anand, when I asked you the opening question that what legal processes follow, he'll be now interrogated by the NIA. Does he then go to the Mumbai police? Because, the crime happened there. They were the prosecutor. They were the investigating agency.
That is correct. That is correct. And the NIA actually has full authority under the Act to prosecute and to interrogate. But ultimately, the place of jurisdiction being Bombay, that is the normal position, it would be there.
Okay. And also, from a layman's perspective, when you talk to the man on the street, it's been over 16 years that, the attack took place. Will it be fast-tracked? Because people say, when will justice be served in this case?
You're right. Your question is so pertinent. Today we are looking at so many things that have happened and way back, but something which created a complete terror regime in that period and dislodged the whole financial capital of Mumbai, resulting in so much hardship and aggravation and violence to the general city in general. So, question of fast tracking it is almost not to be asked. It will happen. It has to happen because we must complete the process, whatever it is. Of course, we do understand that there are a lot of security risks and other issues involved. But having said that, I think India should do well, considering we've had this extradition come in after several rounds of appeal. Now we must get on and we must finish this entire discussion and the process of the offence being tried in accordance with law.
But Captain Bansal, it will open up a bigger can of worms, because if he reveals names, Pakistan will continue to be in denial. They will not hand over Sajid Mir to you. They will not hand over Hafiz Saeed to you. They will not hand over Hashim to you. There are already names that the Indian investigators know, but they will continue to be in denial. So where does this go? Yes, you've got Tahawwur Rana. You can try him, convict him, whatever punishment the court gives, serve him that punishment. But beyond actually bringing all the guilty to justice, will still remain elusive.
See, it would put Pakistan under tremendous pressure, because there will be international pressure which will build up. We will now have a better case to present to the international community. And please understand, Pakistan at this point of time is in a very tight squeeze, because textiles, which is the mainstay of their export, has been heavily tariffed by Trump. So their only redeeming factor is EU and the GSP plus status which they have got from European Union. If European Union also places them under certain restrictions, they would be in a serious problem, because all this attempt of their economy will go into a tailspin. So they would find it very difficult to withstand that sort of a pressure. They may not still hand over anyone to India, but they would at least have to go through some process of sham trial or something and take actions against these people.
Also, geopolitics has changed. The Americans are out of Afghanistan. They don't need the Pakistanis as much as they did when the Kasab trial was going on. Pinky Anand, my last question to you. The case against Rana is that he was a conspirator in the 2611 case. That he did the recce here. He helped David Coleman Headley by allowing him to use his first world immigration firm, etc. So he was a key conspirator in this. What is the maximum punishment that the Indian courts could award him?
You can get death.
Okay. You could get death. Okay. All right.
You can get.
Okay.
You can get. The maximum is death, but doesn't mean it has to be death.
Okay. So he could get death.
I think here one thing is important. I think India has given a commitment that he'll not be hanged. I think is that guarantee we have given it to the US authorities before seeking extradition.
You're right. The punishment is death, but in this case, if you've given a guarantee, we will obviously stand by that.
But Captain Bansal, I want clarity on that again, because I am not aware of that. I think the US law itself, they execute. So they don't, it's not a country which doesn't have death penalty like some European countries. So I'm not sure if under the extradition that we've given them.
This was when he had actually appealed in the US court.
Okay.
The two grounds which were taken was that his life would not be there, and he was told, he had said that I'll be tortured in Indian jails. And he said Indian jails conditions are not good or something, they're not safe. So government of India had actually assured his safety, and also...
No, but after the question is after due process of law, if the court finds him guilty and the sentence commensurate enough to give him a death sentence, have the Indians given any assurance to the Americans that we'll not hang him?
I think so. Whatever I have read, it says that I think there has been an assurance that he will not be eliminated.
Okay. But at least he'll go through the due process of law. So in that sense...
But he would get other... See, the point is, I also said I need to ascertain this fact. I'm not sure if such an assurance is given, it stands. If assurance is given, we would obviously stand by that, because you can't ultimately back off and you must stay with that. But at the same time, he could get imprisonment for life. That there's no such thing that he would not get that. Just for a moment, if we get into that sphere.
So in that sense, justice could be served. It's a next step towards the closure of the case. Pinky Anand, Captain Alok Bansal, thank you very much for being on the show and unraveling this and decoding this for us. Thank you. And still to come up on DD India Newshour, Conservative Friedrich Merz to become new German Chancellor as coalition deal secured. Death toll in Dominican nightclub disaster rises to 124. And Tunisians protest against president as jailed politicians begin a hunger strike. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Amritpal Singh. Let's talk about the other big story of today. The global tariff war is escalating. As Trump's tariffs hit Chinese goods by 104%, Beijing retaliated with 84% tariffs on US exports. Tensions soar, unsettling markets worldwide. Investors are fleeing, causing bond prices to plummet. The escalating trade war threatens global stability, leaving both nations on the edge and economies reeling from the fallout.
In a major escalation of the global tariff war, China on Wednesday imposed 84% tariff on all goods imported from the US in retaliation for Trump's massive 104% duty on Chinese goods. Announcing the new tariff, Beijing vowed to continue fighting back, pledging further countermeasures to protect the Chinese economy.
China firmly opposes and will never accept such arrogant and bullying behavior if the US disregards the interest of both countries and the international community and insists on begging a tariff war and trade war. China will definitely retaliate.
In his first public response since China imposed 84% tariff, US President Donald Trump urged American companies to relocate from China back to the United States. Writing on social media platform Truth Social, Trump said, "This is a great time to move your company to the United States of America. Zero tariffs and almost immediate electrical energy hookups and approvals. No environmental delays. Don't wait. Do it now." Trump also announced on Tuesday that tariffs have started to generate nearly $2 billion per day for the US.
Taking in almost $2 billion a day in tariffs. $2 billion a day. And we're doing very well. And we're doing very well in making, I call them tailored deals, not off the rack. These are tailored, highly tailored deals. Right now, Japan is flying here to make a deal. South Korea is flying here to make a deal, and others are flying here.
Trump also said US will soon announce a major tariff on pharmaceutical imports.
So we're going to be announcing very shortly a major tariff on pharmaceuticals. And when they hear that, they will leave China, they will leave other places because they have to sell. Most of their product is sold here.
Global markets were shaken as new US tariffs started, and China responded by taking action of its own. This caused Wall Street to brace for a tough day ahead. On Wednesday, US dollar fell against the euro and other major currencies because of the tariffs. China's strong reaction raised concerns that a recession might be coming. Syed Absarul Hassan for DD India.
And India sent a strong signal to Bangladesh on two key issues: regional connectivity and water sharing. The Ministry of External Affairs today announced that the trans-shipment facility extended to Bangladesh has been withdrawn, citing logistical challenges and cost burdens. At the same time, India has also made it clear that talks on Teesta water sharing agreement will only proceed when the overall atmosphere is conducive. Here's a report by our correspondent Akhilesh Suman.
India has withdrawn the trans-shipment facility extended to Bangladesh. Effective April 8, 2025, Bangladesh can no longer send shipments to third countries using Indian ports and airports. However, an exception has been made for Nepal and Bhutan.
This was a facility that was extended to Bangladesh in 2020. The trans-shipment facility extended to Bangladesh had over a period of time resulted in significant congestion at our airports and ports. Logistical delays and higher costs were hindering our own exports and creating backlogs. The facility therefore has been withdrawn with effect from 8th April 2025. And let me clarify here, I saw some reports. These measures do not impact Bangladesh's exports to Nepal and Bhutan transiting through Indian territory.
The facility, which was granted in 2020, was aimed at improving regional connectivity. But over time, it led to significant congestion at Indian ports and airports. MEA spokesperson Randeep Jaiswal in a press briefing said that logistical delays and rising costs were affecting India's own exports and creating backlogs. On Wednesday, India has also taken a firm stance on the long-pending Teesta water sharing issue. The Ministry of External Affairs clarified that while both countries share 54 rivers, including the Teesta and Ganga, Dialogue on such issues will only happen if the overall environment is conducive.
To discuss all relevant issues, water issues, we have a mechanism, a bilateral mechanism, which is called Joint Rivers Commission. We are ready to discuss all issues provided that they are mutually agreed upon and provided that the overall environment is conducive for the same.
The twin signals from New Delhi on connectivity and water sharing are seen as a calibrated response amid evolving dynamics in bilateral relations. Akhilesh Suman for DD India.
And to talk more about that, I'm joined by my colleague Naval Singh Parmar, who joins us on the phone line from Dhaka. Naval Singh Parmar, what does it mean when India says it's withdrawing its transshipment facility extended to Bangladesh? How would it impact Bangladesh's exports?
Well, Bangladeshi merchandise, particularly the RMG, ready-made garments and all, took long time to do shipment in their market in Africa and Europe and America. So if they use Indian facilities like particularly in New Delhi, then their shipments by road they move to Delhi, and from Delhi airport it is going to their markets via air cargo. So it is saving times as well as cost for the Bangladeshi exporter. But at the same time, as you mentioned in the report, that it is creating congestion as well as the cost and time delay. So Indian exporters are also suffering from that. So this is the reason the Indian side withdrawn the facility, transshipment facility. But due to this, from Bangladesh daily basis around 20 to 30 shipments or containers are going to Delhi, particularly Delhi, and from there it is moving to the market. So it will affect the Bangladeshi RMG sector, and as there is a Red Sea crisis and the piracy, due to that the insurance cost for the Bangladeshi exporter has increased, and to minimize the effect of Red Sea crisis, they choose and they requested Government of India for the transshipment facility from Delhi and other airports and ports of India. But with this move from Indian side, it will affect the Bangladeshi export as well as the Bangladeshi RMG sector, which is a major sector for the Bangladeshi economy.
Okay. And so just to clarify that their exports passing through India will not affect Nepal and Bhutan.
Yes, it is clearly mentioned in the press briefing of MES spokesperson that it will not affect the Bangladeshi export to Nepal as well as Bhutan.
Passing through India. Okay. But to understand, they have ports of their own, they have airports of their own, both seaports and airports. So you say it takes more time from there. Why is that so?
Actually, for the RMG sector, they have a diversified market across the globe. Bangladesh is the second largest exporter of the ready-made garment. And the market is not consolidated at one place. So they need to send their cargo with various places across the globe. And from Bangladesh, they don't have a direct cargo flight on routine daily basis. As the Bangladesh is compared to India, and it is a small country, and they have a limited cargo shipment. So from India, from Delhi, Calcutta or other major cities of India, there is a quantum of merchandise, the export items are there, and there is a regular flights, cargo flights from Delhi. So if they want to do shipment from the ports of Bangladesh as well as from airport of Bangladesh, then they have to wait for some time for the next cargo ship. It may take 15 days or 1 month or 2 months time to reach European countries like Belgium or some San Francisco, New York, American country. So they prefer Indian port and Indian airport, and for that they need to just cross over the border, and by road they can they can ship their cargo to Delhi, and from Delhi they have a multiple options in the global market.
Absolutely. All right, Naval Singh Parmar, thank you very much. We leave it there. Thank you for joining. And moving on, in Germany, conservative leader Friedrich Merz has struck a coalition deal with centre-left Social Democrats, aiming to jumpstart growth in Europe's largest economy amid fears of a looming global trade war. The agreement follows weeks of negotiations after Merz's election win in February fell short of a majority, with the far-right Alternative for Germany making strong gains. Merz called the coalition a signal that Europe can continue to count on Germany.
The future government, the future coalition will reform and invest to keep Germany stable, make it safer and make it economically stronger again. And Europe can also rely on Germany.
And in the Dominican Republic, rescues worked through the night in Santo Domingo after a devastating nightclub roof collapse claimed at least 124 lives. The tragedy struck during a concert by the famed singer Ruby Perez, who was among the victims. Families gathered anxiously near the Jet Set nightclub, scanning lists of survivors, rushed to local hospitals. Emergency crews are bringing in heavier equipment to speed up the rescue efforts as the nation mourns the loss of several prominent figures caught in the disaster. And still to come up on DD India Newshour, we decode the implications of the escalating global tariff war with a special guest on the show. And we also bring you details of India's Union Cabinet decisions cheered by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Union Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan leads India at the third BIMSTEC ministerial meeting on agriculture at Kathmandu.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Amritpal Singh. Let's now take a look at how the global trade landscape, which is in turmoil as sweeping tariffs announced by US President Donald Trump, have sparked strong reactions worldwide. China has filed a complaint with the WTO over bruising tariffs imposed by Washington. Beijing's Commerce Ministry has announced that, accusing the US President Donald Trump of engaging in bullying tactics. Meanwhile, EU member states approved on Wednesday 25% additional tariffs on a wide range of US products. Here's a report.
The sweeping tariffs announced by US President Donald Trump have triggered strong reactions worldwide. Countries and leaders are expressing concerns over the economic and diplomatic fallout of these measures. China has escalated tensions by increasing tariffs on US goods to 84%, up from the previously announced 34%, effective from Thursday.
The US side is still imposing extreme pressure on China by imposing tariffs indiscriminately. China firmly opposes and will never accept such arrogant and bullying behavior. If the US really wants to solve the problem through dialogue and negotiations, it should show an attitude of equality, respect and reciprocity. If the US disregards the interests of both countries and the international community and insists on waging a tariff war and trade war, China will definitely retaliate.
Meanwhile, the European Union member states approved 25% tariffs on a wide range of US products in retaliation against 25% tariffs imposed by the US on imports of steel and aluminum from the bloc. France faces 25% import tariffs on steel, aluminum and cars, along with broader 20% tariffs on most other goods under Trump's policy. During a visit to Egypt, French President Emmanuel Macron criticized the tariffs, calling them a bad idea and confirming that France would retaliate.
Things are simple. France and Europe have never wished for chaos or higher tariffs. We think it's a bad idea and a poor response to the trade deficit. We have also always said that we had defended our economy. So, if there are tariffs and they are at 20%, we will respond.
Brazil has responded by passing an economic reciprocity law enabling counter tariffs against the US.
I'm seeing Trump's behavior in the US, and I don't think it is going to work out. It is not going to work. Nobody take a transatlantic ship that full and does what is happening.
Japan and South Korea have also raised concerns about the impact of these tariffs on global trade systems. Economists are warning that the escalating trade war could lead to a global recession, disrupting markets and trade norms. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
And to talk about that, I'm joined by Gautam Sen, who's an economist at the London School of Economics. Mr. Sen, the question that the answer which everybody is seeking is when will it, how long or how far will it escalate before it de-escalates?
I think it will de-escalate because it is proving very costly for all parties concerned. But the problem is we don't know how long this short term is going to be. Because in the medium term, the chaos will be very consequential, including for the United States. And what we have is effectively economic war, a war without the use of ground troops, air and naval power, because a lot of countries are going to be in very serious domestic turmoil. Now, the only other issue which is worth noting as a pragmatic question is all the trading partners of the United States are obliged to retaliate, if only because retaliation is the basis for negotiation. However, it's all a little bit puzzling because I don't understand exactly what the United States is trying to achieve. It doesn't make sense. For example, it was thought because of the very sharp fall in equity prices, people will rush to bonds. And US servicing costs for bonds will decline. Now that hasn't happened. In fact, it has gone up by half a basis point. In fact, I think 0.66.
Yeah.
So the servicing costs have gone up almost by in the region of about $27 billion per year for the United States. Now, I'm sure that is not something which the administration would welcome. Beyond that, they have said, as far as India is concerned, they are going to exclude IT services and pharmaceuticals. But now I hear today, Donald Trump is considering imposing tariffs on pharmaceuticals. Now that's very interesting because pharmaceuticals are relatively price elastic. So even if you impose tariffs in the short term, the US health industry will have to continue buy these more expensive drugs and simply pay for the tariffs that is from one government department to another.
Right.
So all this is mightily puzzling because 26% of the US budget is spent on Medicare and health services. The largest component is social services, and then we have the cost of defense and the cost of servicing debt, which are both 13% each. So the US budget deficit might even rise because that has been falling since 2020. So I'm afraid it is not a good situation even for the United States. Now for India,
we'll come to India.
Agriculture is excluded because India will not negotiate on agriculture. IT services, which are a very large component, are excluded. And what is puzzling is that India's merchandise exports are relatively small. In fact, India has a fairly significant deficit in merchandise exports. So it was not a deserving party to be slapped with tariffs on the merchandise sector. Because, India's merchandise are paid for by our service export earnings. So I really don't know what the United States is doing. It will cause us pain, and for us, in a way, it is not an opportune moment for any of this to happen, especially if it lasts, because India was hoping to ramp up its exports, reduce the merchandise deficit, and also to use export earnings, not quite like China, but in a similar way to fund domestic economic transformation. So it is a very inopportune moment for India to face this.
Okay.
What India might gain from is that in some sectors like textiles, clothing, and other areas, India's competitors like Vietnam and Bangladesh have had higher tariffs imposed on them. However, if the US economy goes into recession, and that is a danger, Indian exports to the United States overall will suffer a setback. Because if the US economy grows by, say, 1%, Indian exports to the United States grow by a third. So I'm afraid it's a mess. Now, as an aside, to underline how puzzling it all is, average European Union tariffs against US exports is 1.7%, which means the European Union has virtually nothing to offer. They have no room to maneuver. They can remove the 1.7, but that will hardly make a difference. The US problem really is with China.
Okay.
A problem which even India has. India's export trade deficit with China is about 112 billion. It was between 100 and 120. I believe is 112. So most countries are suffering because of China's huge merchandise trade surplus, and that is achieved by many unfair trade practices. That we all know. So the United States should have targeted China and reached some kind of settlement by going sector by sector, not in this way of using a blunderbuss.
A blanket, tariff on the Chinese. But the Chinese have retaliated too. They are a big economy, and that's what makes it even more troublesome. Because if two giants fight, the global orders is disrupted. But my question to you, Mr. Sen, is that why?
I will pause for one moment.
Yes.
The fight between the United States and China, as you say, is going to be a problem for everybody else.
Yes.
But there is a little twist to this tale.
Okay.
In the case of China, the principal in the trade issue are the ordinary people of China. The agent is the state.
Right.
In the Chinese case, the agent is somewhat insulated from the principal. So even if the principal suffers, the agent can ignore it. The United States can't, because the principal, which is the US electorate in a democracy, is strongly tied to the agent, which is the state. So the US actually paradoxically has less room for taking punishment.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
All right. If that is so, then why is Donald Trump doing this? I can understand his saber-rattling diplomacy that, if he wants an apple, he asks for the orchard. And then finally, when gets down to the negotiating table, he strengthens his hand and gets what he wants. But I mean, if he's fighting with everybody at the same time, the EU has now said we'll impose tariffs on US exports. So can he afford to fight with the whole world at the same in one go?
This really is what we call a game of chicken, to see who blinks first, who retreats first. And the problem is that the most important player in this whole situation, China, may not blink as quickly as perhaps Donald Trump expects, because I am sure he will not want this to carry on for very much longer. Because, for example, the US 401k pension funds have collapsed. A lot of people are suffering pain, especially those who have to make withdrawals now. Some may be able to postpone, but not a lot of people have to take withdrawals. Savings rate will rise a little bit because, as people's wealth declines because of the equity market will rise. This will be bad for consumption. There will be many, many negative effects for the United States. So Trump almost certainly wishes for this to be negotiated. The question is, how quickly would that be possible?
Yes. All right, Mr. Gautam Sen, we leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights with us. Thank you. And in more international updates, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said on Wednesday that Iran was holding indirect talks with the United States over Tehran's nuclear program. The comments come after U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday that that the two countries would hold direct talks. Although Iran's foreign minister also said that discussions would be held in Oman via mediators.
We are holding talks, as the Supreme Leader has stated, indirectly with dignity and pride, and with every assurance necessary to show that we are not pursuing a nuclear bomb. They have come 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times to investigate, and they can come investigate again. We have not been, are not, and will not be pursuing a nuclear bomb.
And President Donald Trump, U.S. President Donald Trump's pick to run NASA, Jared Isaacman, made waves during his confirmation hearing on Wednesday by signaling his intention to create a new focus on Mars exploration. A confirmation hearing for Isaacman, the billionaire CEO of payments platform company Shift4, who has twice paid to fly aboard SpaceX capsules, kicked off before the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science and Transportations in the United States. And let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Hundreds took to streets in Tunisia, rallying against what they say is President Kais Saied's increasingly authoritarian rule. Protesters called for the release of political prisoners as 6 detained opposition figures launched a hunger strike. Thousands of workers across Greece walked off the job Wednesday as country's largest trade union staged a general strike demanding higher wages amid soaring living costs. The one-day strike brought trains to a halt, left ferries docked, flights grounded, and saw bus and metro services in Athens disrupted by stoppages. In Bolivia, relentless rains have triggered severe flooding in northeastern region of Beni, devastating homes and crops. With soy fields and ranches submerged, the floods threaten key exports and are driving up local food prices, marking one of the worst rainy seasons in the country in decades. President Draupadi Murmu is in Slovakia on a state visit. She held talks with her Slovak counterpart in Bratislava. Leaders reviewed various facets of the India-Slovakia ties and witnessed the exchange of 2 memoranda of understanding. DD India's Jayanti Jha describes the development in Bratislava in greater detail regarding the President's visit.
Day 1 of President Draupadi Murmu's state visit to Slovakia saw several high-level engagements. She began her day by meeting President Peter Pellegrini at the Presidential Palace, followed by delegation-level talks. She also met Prime Minister Robert Fico as well as the Speaker of the National Assembly, Ricard Rashi.
President Draupadi Murmu met President Peter Pellegrini at the Presidential Palace, followed by delegation-level talks and press statements where Slovakia unequivocally supported India's candidature to the UNSC as a permanent member. The President appreciated the personal commitment and initiative of President Pellegrini towards strengthening bilateral relations.
पेलेग्रिनी के साथ मेरे रचनात्मक बैठक हुई। हमने अपने द्विपक्षीय संबंधों के सभी महत्वपूर्ण पहलुओं की समीक्षा की और साझा वैश्विक और क्षेत्रीय हितों के मुद्दों पर भी चर्चा की। मैंने हमारे देशों के बीच संबंधों को मजबूत करने की दिशा में उनकी व्यक्तिगत पहल और प्रतिबद्धता को भी सराहना की है।
Both leaders witnessed the exchange of 2 MOUs, one on cooperation in the field of MSMEs between National Small Industries Cooperation Limited and the Slovak Business Agency, and another on cooperation between Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign Service and the Slovak Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. President Murmu also met the Speaker of National Council of the Slovak Republic, Richard Rashi, in Bratislava. President Murmu congratulated him on his recent election as Speaker and reaffirmed the high priority attached by India to the historic friendship between the two countries. President Murmu also met Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, and held delegation-level talks. President Murmu paid respect to the Freedom Gate Memorial in Bratislava to all those who lost their lives in trying to leave Slovakia during the communist regime. This was followed by a boat tour of Bratislava. Earlier on Wednesday morning, the president was warmly received by President Peter Pellegrini of the Slovak Republic at the Presidential Palace in Bratislava. The president was accorded a ceremonial welcome with Guard of Honor.
President Draupadi Murmu's state visit to Slovakia, the first by an Indian president in almost 30 years, marks a new chapter in India-Slovak relations. In the coming days, we will see multiple components of this visit, ranging from cultural to business to political, highlighting the different similarities between the two nations as well as the avenues for future cooperation. With camera person Pramod Negi reporting from Bratislava, this is Jayanti Jha for DD India.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has emphasized the importance of Jain literature in shaping India's rich intellectual and spiritual heritage, calling it the backbone of India's intellectual grandeur. The Prime Minister was addressing a gathering at the Navkar Maha Mantra Divas in New Delhi on Wednesday. Prime Minister Modi said that preserving ancient Jain texts is a national duty. The Prime Minister highlighted the government's decision to grant classical language status to Prakrit and Pali, two ancient Indian languages deeply intertwined with Jain and Buddhist traditions.
नवकार महामंत्र का एक दर्शन विकसित भारत के विजन से जुड़ता है। मैंने लाल किले से कहा है, विकसित भारत यानी विकास भी विरासत भी। एक ऐसा भारत जो रुकेगा नहीं, ऐसा भारत जो थमेगा नहीं, जो ऊंचाई छुएगा लेकिन अपनी जड़ों से नहीं कटेगा। विकसित भारत अपनी संस्कृति पर गर्व करेगा। इसलिए हम अपने तीर्थंकरों की शिक्षाओं को सहेजते हैं।
The Indian Council for Cultural Relations, or the ICCR, is celebrating 75 years of global cultural exchange. The special event held on Wednesday at the ICCR headquarters in Delhi aims to strengthen international relations and promote global harmony through cultural dialogue. Speaking at the event, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar emphasized the importance of ICCR in promoting Indian culture effectively abroad.
The ICCR's mandate has evolved in these last 75 years to a considerable extent. We have both the intention and today the resources to project India's culture more effectively abroad. But culture itself has acquired broader connotations, extending to different facets of our social fabric. Encouraging a dialogue about our democratic traditions is one such example. Developing a deeper understanding of the inherent unity that has enabled diversity to flower in this country is another.
The Reserve Bank of India today reduced the key lending rates for the second consecutive time by 25 basis points. MPC voted unanimously to reduce the policy repo rate, which now stands at 6%. Supported by a sharp fall in food inflation, RBI also noted that inflation is currently below the target.
The RBI Monetary Policy Committee on Wednesday voted unanimously to reduce the policy repo rate by 25 basis points to 6% with immediate effect. Consequently, the standing deposit facility rate under the Liquidity Adjustment Facility stands adjusted to 5.75% and the marginal standing facility rate and the bank rate to 6.25%.
After a detailed assessment of the evolving macroeconomic and financial conditions and outlook, the MPC voted unanimously to reduce the policy repo rate by 25 basis points to 6% with immediate effect.
RBI also revised India's GDP growth projection for the fiscal year from 6.7 to 6.5%, reflecting concerns over global trade dynamics. Assuming a normal monsoon along with other factors, CPI inflation for the financial year 2025-26 is projected at 4%.
Assuming a normal monsoon, CPI inflation for the financial year 25-26 this year is projected at 4%, with Q1 at 3.6%, Q2 at 3.9%, Q3 at 3.8%, and Q4 slightly higher at 4.4%. The risks are evenly balanced.
The policy announcement has been welcomed by the industry as they are of the view that the central bank will be in a position to handle the global uncertainties.
In this dynamic global environment where we are seeing tariff wars happening, we are in an interesting position where RBI has arsenal to tackle any situation by reducing interest rates, which would boost consumption, which will ensure that instead of people saving, they spend and economy revives.
The RBI's decision to reduce the repo rates by 25 basis points is in line with our expectations, and this shows government's intention to promote economic growth amid the global trade tensions which are ongoing.
The central bank has emphasized that global economy is going through a period of exceptional uncertainties, but the RBI will remain agile and decisive in response and put in place policies that are clear, consistent, credible, and in the best interest of the economy.
The MPC has delivered everything that was anticipated for. While the RBI has chosen to lead with calm conviction in an uncertain world, markets are happy that the only way forward for the rates is now downwards. With camera person Kapil Maske, this is Shama Mishra for DD India, Mumbai.
Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs of India, Nirmala Sitharaman, participated in an investment roundtable in London alongside James Reynolds, UK's Secretary of State for Business and Trade, basically the Trade Minister, and the Lord Mayor of London, Alistair King. Addressing a global audience, Sitharaman highlighted India's rapid growth as one of the world's fastest growing economies, on track to become the third largest. She also emphasized the government's reforms, including reducing compliance burdens and enhancing governance. Every year on April 10th, India joins the world in celebrating World Homeopathy Day, commemorating the birth anniversary of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, the pioneer of homeopathy. This year, the celebration scales new heights at the Mahatma Mandir Convention and Exhibition Centre in Gandhinagar in Gujarat, with India's largest ever homeopathy symposium organised by CCRH and the National Commission for Homeopathy and the National Institute of Homeopathy. The event will showcase cutting-edge research, vibrant discussions, and the country's biggest homeopathy industry exhibition. It is a celebration of innovation, collaboration, and India's growing leadership in the world of homeopathy. On the World Homeopathy Day, let's take a look at the journey of homeopathy in India. Well, that's it. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has approved the doubling of the Tirupati-Pakala Kattapadi single railway line section in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, with the approximate cost of 1,332 crore rupees. The enhanced line capacity will improve mobility, providing enhanced efficiency and service reliability for Indian Railways. India's Union Minister for Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare and Rural Development, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, and Nepal's Union Minister for Agriculture and Livestock Development, Ramnath Adhikari, signed a memorandum of understanding on cooperation in the field of agriculture between India and Nepal on the sidelines of the third BIMSTEC Agriculture Ministerial meeting on Wednesday. The ministers reviewed the existing bilateral cooperation in agriculture and discussed ways to deepen collaboration for mutual benefit. And that's it in this edition of DD India Newshour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code that you see on your screens right now to download. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Amritpal Singh from my entire team here in Delhi. Thank you for watching DD India Newshour. Bye-bye.